Hello my friends and welcome to episode 3 of my second age Amazon Lord of the Rings TV series timeline, where throughout each video we go throughout the entire timeline of the second age and consequently look at events we could see in the upcoming Amazon Lord of the Rings TV series. If you haven't seen the first 2 episodes which cover up to the year 1500 the second age, I will leave a link to it in the description below. At the end of the last episode, we ended at the beginning of the Forging of the Rings of Power by Celebrimbor while being constructed by Sauron. But now, let's continue. So as we know, in Middle-earth, the Rings of Power are being forged. Meanwhile, in Numenor, in 1566 or the Second Age, Tar Telperion becomes the second Queen of Numenor. During her reign, she refused to marry and bore no children. Then finally, from the year 1600 of the Second Age, Sauron had deceived the Noldor of Eregion and forged the One Ring, claiming all the Rings of Power except the 3 Elven Rings. Also, Celebrimbor had been betrayed during these events, and the fight between Sauron and Celebrimbor began to escalate. During this year, the construction of Barad-dûr is completed. It is also debated whether Glorfindel and the Blue Wizards arrived in Middle-earth from the year 1600 as well, as is referenced in the Peoples of Middle-earth. Almost a century later, in 1693 of the Second Age, the War of the Elves and Sauron begins. Messages of Sauron's betrayal had reached Lindon, which is highlighted in yellow on the map on the screen, and the High King Gil-galad, who began to amass forces prepared for invasion from Sauron as well. He also called for help from Numenor. In 1695, the siege of Eregion began, and the Lord of Eregion, Celebrimbor, was in charge of the defences and borders, as Sauron had crossed the fords of Isen. Gil-galad had sent a force led by Elrond to Eregion to help support Celebrimbor, but he arrived too late as Eregion was in ruins and destroyed. Celebrimbor was killed and humiliated and tortured by Sauron to reveal the location of the other rings. However, the location of the 3 rings were not revealed as they were sent into hiding. Meanwhile, Elrond managed to escape and build a fortress in the valley in the Misty Mountains called Rivendell. By 1699 of the Second Age, the entirety of Eriador fell and was under the control of Sauron. He set fires to the massive forests of Enedwaith and Minhiriath to drive the other elven forces and allies away. Rivendell and Lindon were now also besieged by Sauron and his forces, with Lindon, Khazad-dûm and Rivendell all cut off from communication with each other. The dwarves also locked themselves up in Khazad-dûm. However, the next year, a great Numenorean army arrived onto the shores of Middle-earth, which was sent by Tar-Minastir and commanded by Ciriatur. The Numenorean forces landed in Lindon, on the Gwothlô and near Pelagir. Thus, from all corners, Sauron's armies were forced back, and then he was defeated at the Battle of the Gwothlô, and he then retreated back to Mordor, which in 1701 ended the war of the Elves and Sauron, but Eregion was gone and most of Eriador destroyed. In 1731, Tar-Minastir becomes the 11th king of Numenor, and later in the year 1800 the Second Age, Numenor begins to establish permanent settlements in Middle-earth. Then, in 1869 the Second Age, Tar-Kiriatan becomes the 12th king of Numenor, and his rule is marked by the first coming of the shadow upon the Numenoreans and their rulers, and also the speaking out openly against the Valar and the beginning of colonialism and dominion abroad on Middle-earth. Finally, in 2029 of the Second Age, Tar-Ataname the Great becomes the 13th king of Numenor, but this fully began the hatred towards the Valar, which started to grow throughout his father's reign. Tar-Ataname began to speak out against them, and especially against the ban of the Valar, and to advocate opposition to the Valar themselves. The ban of the Valar was opposed on the Numenoreans by the Valar, not allowing them to sail west to the Undying Lands, but Tar-Ataname openly opposed this and rejected it. But we are going to leave it there for today's video. Throughout this time period, we see the climax between the Elves and Sauron seen through the War of the Elves and Sauron. We also see the vital death of Celebrimbor and the destruction of Eregion by Sauron's forces. And near the end, we see the beginning of the hatred towards the Valar by the Numenoreans and the decline of Numenor. Out of all the episodes so far and the rest to come, I believe this time period is most likely to be seen within the Amazon Orderings TV series and probably in the first few seasons. The events that occur from 1500 onwards, such as the War of the Elves and Sauron, sacking of Eregion, forging of the rings, and the One Ring, will all be massive events that we might see in the show. But thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe until the next video, my friends. Goodbye.